My family swore I was a Navy dropout, a failure. So, I stood silent at my brother's Navy SEAL graduation, hidden at the back of the crowd. I just wanted to be invisible. But I failed. Because during the ceremony, the admiral in charge of the entire operation, my brother's new boss, stopped everything. He walked right past my family, locked eyes with me and saluted. The crowd froze. My father's jaw hit the floor. "Colonel," the admiral said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "What are you doing back here?" Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to stand up to family who underestimated your worth. My name is Amani Hayes. I am 34 years old, and according to my family, I am a professional disappointment. For the last 12 years, that has been my official title in the Hayes household. The dropout, the failure, the one who couldn't hack it, the one who broke our father's heart. This identity has been hammered into me for so long that I almost believe it. Almost. Tonight, I am sitting in an absurdly expensive seafood restaurant in Coronado, California. The air smells like salt water and the kind of perfume that costs more than my monthly grocery bill. This dinner is supposed to be a celebration. It is the night before my younger brother Marcus graduates from Bud S. Tomorrow he officially becomes a Navy SEAL, the pinnacle of my father's dreams. The sound of my mother's laugh rings across the table. It is a high, brittle sound designed to be overheard by the other patrons, many of them in uniform. Her name is Janelle. She is a woman who lives for appearances, for the social validation that comes from having a perfect family. Her eyes are not on her children, but on the room, scanning for anyone important. Sitting next to my brother, clinging to his arm, is his new fiancée, Chloe. She is a pale, thin woman from a wealthy La Jolla family, all sharp angles and sharper glances. She has not looked at me once tonight, except for an initial grimace. She looks at me like I am something she scraped off her designer shoe, a blemish on the perfect family portrait she is marrying into. And then there is Marcus, the golden child, the one who did everything right. He is 26, built like a Greek god and soaking in the adoration from our father who sits at the head of the table. Marcus is holding court telling some loud story about his training, and he has not acknowledged my presence since I arrived. I flew here from DC, paying for the ticket with my own money, telling myself it was important to be here for him. It was a lie. I knew what this would be. The moment I sat down, I felt the familiar coldness settle over me. It is the heavy blanket of my family's disapproval, a chill that no expensive glass of wine can warm. They see me as the failed IT support specialist, the one living in a tiny apartment in a bad part of DC. I am their cautionary tale. I try to fade into the expensive upholstery to just be a ghost at the feast. But in my family, ghosts are not allowed to be peaceful. They are meant to be poked to be reminded of why they failed to stay alive. They are waiting for one of them to speak to land the first blow, and I know it will not take long. Chloe is the first to draw blood. She leans forward, her blonde hair falling over one shoulder. She rests her diamond-laden hand on Marcus's arm. Her voice is soft, a sugary whisper that is perfectly calibrated to cut deeper than a shout. "Oh, Amani," she says, her lips curling into a pitying smile. "You actually came. I am so surprised." I just look at her, my fork hovering over my untouched salad. My mother Janelle immediately jumps in to defend her favorite new addition. "Now, Amani, don't be defensive. Chloe just meant well." Chloe cuts her off, her blue eyes fixed on me wide and innocent. "I just meant, you know," she continues, her voice dripping with fake concern. "I told Marcus I was sure your little job, whatever it is, probably could not afford the airfare. Things are just so expensive right now." She says expensive as if it is a foreign word she just learned. Especially for people on a budget, and flying into San Diego is never cheap. I can feel my father's eyes on me from the head of the table. He is waiting for me to react, to get angry, to cry, to prove I am as weak and emotional as he has always said I am. Marcus just smirks into his craft beer, enjoying the show. "My job pays my bills, Chloe," I say, my voice dangerously quiet. She laughs, a small tinkle of a sound that sets my teeth on edge. "Oh, I am sure it does. It must be so hard doing that IT support or whatever it is. Fixing printers, resetting passwords. Is that what you do?" She turns to Marcus, batting her eyelashes. It is so sweet that she tries, isn't it, baby? This is her role. As the white, wealthy outsider, she has been given the unique privilege of saying the quiet part out loud. She can voice the contempt that my mother and father only imply. She is their proxy, their attack dog, veiled in cashmere and diamonds. I am just so glad you could make it, she finishes, patting my hand across the table. Her skin is cold. So you can see what real success looks like. The insult hangs in the air, thick and toxic. Real success. My brother, the Navy SEAL, and me, the one who fixes printers. The silence at the table is deafening. My mother, Janelle, sips her wine, a small, satisfied smile playing on her lips. She is pleased. The attack was successful. My father clears his throat, a sound of gruff approval. I feel the heat rising up my neck, a familiar burn of shame and rage. I dig my fingernail into the stem of my water glass, pressing hard just to feel something other than the sting of her words. The attack is complete, and it has been fully endorsed by the rest of my family. My mother, Janelle, decides it is her turn. She lets out a small tinkling laugh, the one she uses at her country club functions. Now, Chloe, honey, be nice, she says, though her eyes are not on Chloe. They are on me, cold and assessing. At least she is trying. That is what matters. She takes a delicate sip of her Chardonnay, her little finger extended. Although, Amani, she says, her gaze sweeping over me from my head to my toes. That suit. I freeze. I am wearing a simple, well-tailored charcoal gray suit. It is professional, clean, and understated. It is also more expensive than her entire outfit, but she would never know that. Are you going to a job interview after this? She asks, her voice laced with a false, sugary concern. For a secretarial position? Or perhaps you are applying for welfare benefits. That is what that outfit says. Honey, I give up. My father snorts into his napkin. She wishes she could get a secretarial job, he mutters. Janelle continues, ignoring him, her focus entirely on me. Her smile is tight and unpleasant. You just look so plain. Honey, so severe. You have to present yourself. Look at your brother. She gestures to Marcus, who beams. Look at his beautiful fiancé. Look at your father. She spreads her hands, showcasing the table, the expensive wine, the seafood towers. This is what success looks like, baby. It is about presentation. It is about the image. I feel the familiar heat rising up my neck, a hot, suffocating flush that I have known my entire life. This is my mother's weapon. Not the open rage of my father, but the slow cutting death by 1,000 comparisons. My mother's entire world is built on presentation. We are an African-American family that fought its way into the upper middle class. And to her, success is not a feeling. It is a performance. It is the big house in Virginia Beach, the luxury cars, the son who is a Navy SEAL, and the daughter-in-law with old money. I am the smudge on her perfect picture. I am the living, breathing proof that she failed somewhere. I did not realize there was a dress code. Mom, I say, my voice flat. There is always a dress code, Amani. She replies instantly, her smile never wavering. It is called respect. Respect for your brother's accomplishments. You show up looking like his poor, unsuccessful sister. It is embarrassing. She lowers her voice, leaning in as if sharing a secret, though it is loud enough for the whole table to hear. It makes us look bad. It makes it look like we did not provide for you, like we are bad parents. You did provide for me, I say, my jaw tightening. Then why do you insist on looking like you work in a cubicle? She snaps, her voice rising. Why could you not just do what we asked? Why did you have to be so difficult? Why did you have to throw everything away? And there it is, the real question. The one that always lies just beneath the surface of her insults about my clothes or my job. Why was I not a success? Why was I not Marcus? I have no answer for her. Or rather, I have an answer. But it is one I am not allowed to give. So I just sit there, the unsuccessful daughter, the failure, the one who looks like she is applying for welfare, the family disappointment in a plain charcoal suit. Then my father, David Hayes, clears his throat. It is not a polite sound. It is a sharp, percussive noise like a gavel coming down. The table falls completely silent. Chloe's snickering stops. Janelle's smug smile freezes. All eyes snap to the head of the table. My father, a retired Navy senior chief petty officer, commands the room, even in a civilian polo shirt. His voice is a low rumble, the voice that has haunted my entire life. The voice of command, the voice of absolute judgment. Enough, he says. He is not talking to Janelle or Chloe. He is talking to me. You come here to my table on the eve of your brother's greatest achievement, and you bring this sour, jealous attitude. Dad, I did not say anything. I protest, my voice small. You did not have to, he barks. The nearby tables glance over, startled. You sit there in your cheap suit with your sour face. You are radiating bitterness. You are disrespectful to me, to your mother, and to your brother. He leans forward, his thick shoulders bunching, his eyes burning into mine. I am a man of the Navy, my son. He nods at Marcus with unbearable, suffocating pride. Is a man of the Navy. Tomorrow he is about to wear the trident, the most honored pin in the entire armed forces. He is a warrior, a hero. He is what this family is all about. He did the work. He pauses, letting the words hang in the air. He is a real man. He saw it through. He did not quit when it got hard. His eyes lock onto mine and the entire table feels the impact of the blow. He is not a dropout. There it is. The word, the brand he seared onto my skin 12 years ago. Dropout. Tomorrow is about honor, he continues, his voice rising. It is about legacy. It is about the Hayes name being associated with the best of the best. It is about him. He points to Marcus. And you will not ruin it with your petty jealousy. You had your chance at honor, Amani. You had the world at your feet. A full scholarship to the Naval Academy, and you threw it away because it was too hard. He points a thick finger at me. You are lucky we let you sit at this table at all. You are lucky we even acknowledge you. You are my blood, but you are not my legacy. He is my legacy. You are just my failure. So you will sit there. You will keep your mouth shut, and you will show respect. Do you understand me? Dropout. That is the name he branded me with 12 years ago. Quitter, disgrace, failure. I sit there and take the verbal beating, my face a mask of stone, but inside the memory plays out as sharp and clear as if it were yesterday. I was 22 years old. I was not a dropout. I was at the top of my class at the Naval Academy. Top 5%. I excelled in everything, but I excelled too much in one specific area, cybernetics, and network security. In my first year, I found a flaw in the Academy's internal network. A massive one. I did not exploit it. I wrote a paper on it and gave it to my commanding officer, thinking I would get extra credit. Instead, I got a summons. 2 men in dark suits were waiting for me. They were not from the Navy. They were from the Air Force. They ran the Air Force Cyber Command. They told me I had a once-in-a-generation mind for this kind of warfare. They told me the future of national security was not just ships or planes. It was data. It was the network. They made me an offer I could not refuse. They would pull me from the academy immediately. They would fund my entire education, my master's, my doctorate. In exchange, I would be fast-tracked for a direct commission into the Air Force as a cyber warfare officer. It was a top-secret recruitment program. To accept, I had to leave Annapolis immediately, and I had to sign a stack of non-disclosure agreements so thick they could have stopped a bullet. I could not tell anyone. Not my friends, not my professors, and not my family. I tried. I really tried to explain it to my father. I told him I was not quitting. I told him I had been recruited for a different program. He did not listen. He heard, leaving the Navy, and his entire world shattered. He screamed at me for 3 hours straight. He called me a liar. He said I was making up pathetic stories to cover for the fact that I was weak, that I could not handle the physical demands. He said I was a washout, and that was that. His judgment was final. So I let him believe it. For 12 years, I have let them all believe it. I let them believe I am a failed IT support specialist living in DC. I could not tell them I was a captain by 28. I could not tell them I was a major by 31. I cannot tell them that the cheap suit I am wearing is what a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force wears to a formal dinner. My job is not fixing printers. My job is protecting the country, including my father's precious Navy. And he just called me a failure. My father's final word, failure, is still hanging in the air, thick and heavy like smoke. He sits back in his chair, breathing heavily, satisfied. He has put me in my place. My mother looks proud of him. Chloe looks thrilled. And Marcus, my brother, the man of the hour, has been watching this all with a detached, lazy amusement. He has seen this show his whole life. My failure is the necessary backdrop for his success. He needs me to be the dropout so he can be the hero. He leans forward, placing his beer on the table. He puts on a show of brotherly concern, a look of pained sincerity that is somehow more insulting than my father's open rage. "Hey, Amani," he says, his voice low and confidential. "Look, I am glad you came. Really, it is nice. But Dad is right. You are kind of killing the vibe." "Killing the vibe?" I repeat, my voice hollow. I feel nothing. I am numb. Yeah, he says, shrugging his massive, decorated shoulders. This is a big weekend for me, for the family. All my commanders are going to be there tomorrow. All my teammates, their families. It is a very big deal. I know that, Marcus. Congratulations, I managed to say. Thanks, he says, flashing a quick, confident smile. So, about tomorrow. He glances at Chloe, who nods encouragingly, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. I really think it is better if you stand at the back. I stare at him. The sounds of the restaurant, the clinking of glasses, the distant laughter. All of it fades away. Stand at the back. Yeah, he says, gesturing vaguely with his hand as if explaining something simple to a child. Way at the back where the general crowds are. Just not with the family, not in the front row. He lowers his voice even more as if this is a reasonable request between siblings. Mom, Dad, and Chloe are going to be in the reserved family seating right up front. But you, he trails off, letting the insult hang in the air, unfinished. Chloe, his fiancée, immediately jumps in to clarify, her voice sickly sweet. He just means we do not want to confuse anyone, Amani. We do not want the officers or their wives to see you and, get the wrong impression about the family. It is all about presentation. The wrong impression, the stain on their perfect image, the failure for a daughter, the dropout for a sister. Marcus, I say, and I am disgusted to hear my own voice shake for the first time tonight. I am your sister. I know, he says, and he has the audacity to look sad, which makes it 10 times worse. I know you are, but tomorrow I'm a Navy SEAL, and you are. Well, you. I just want everything to be perfect. You get that, right? So just stand at the back. Please, for me, do not make this weird. He has finally done it. He has officially verbally downed me from the family unit. I am not to be seen with them. I am the relative to be hidden. The shame, the dropout. I look at my father. He is not angry anymore. He just looks tired. He nods once, a slow, firm gesture of agreement. Do what your brother says, Amani. Know your place. No, my place. The words echo in the cold, dead silence inside me. At the back, away from the family, hidden. I stand up. My legs feel like wood. The humiliation is a physical weight pressing down on my chest. I have to use the restroom, I mumble. My voice is a stranger's, hollow and thin. I do not wait for a reply. I do not look at any of them. I turn and walk away from the table, away from their faces, their pity, their disgust. I just walk, my heels clicking on the tile floor, each step an echo of the word failure. The second my back is turned, the problem is gone. Instantly, the tension at the table vanishes, and my father's good mood returns. Booming and expansive. He is already celebrating. His voice is so loud, I can hear it halfway across the restaurant. Tomorrow, he roars, his voice filled with pride. My God, Marcus, I cannot wait. Did you hear who is speaking? Did you hear who is pinning the trident on your class? Who, Dad? Rear Admiral Thorne, my father bellows, nearly shouting, causing other diners to look over. The Admiral Thorne, the commander of Naval Special Warfare Command himself, a living legend, a warrior's warrior son. My mother's voice joins in, high and thrilled. Oh, David, really, how wonderful. We must get a picture. A picture, my father scoffs. I am going to shake his hand, Janelle. I am going to make sure he sees you, Marcus. I am going to make sure he sees the Hayes family legacy standing right there in front of him. He needs to see the kind of men this family produces. I stop. I stand just out of their line of sight, hidden by a large decorative palm. The words hit me. Rear Admiral Thorne. I know him. I know him very well. I do not know him as a legend or a warrior. I know him as Admiral Thorne, the man I brief every Tuesday at 0800 hours, the man who co-chairs the Joint Cyber Warfare Task Force with me, the man who calls me Dr. Hayes, the man who calls me Colonel. My father wants Admiral Thorne to see the Hayes family legacy. A smile touches my lips. It is not a nice smile. It is cold, hard, and angry. Okay, Dad, I whisper to myself in the shadows of the expensive restaurant. Let's make sure he does. I turn and walk away, not to the restroom, but straight out the front door into the cool, salty California night. I finally have an answer. Tomorrow, they will all have their answer. The next morning, The sun beat down on the pavement, a harsh white California glare that bounced off the hoods of a long line of cars. We were at the main gate of Naval Base Coronado, the legendary home of the SEALs. The sign read, "Welcome to the birthplace of Naval Special Warfare." It was hot even at 9 inches the morning. You could smell the salt from the ocean mixing with the faint scent of diesel exhaust from the trucks. In our rented black SUV, a massive, obnoxious vehicle that screamed, "Look at me." The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. My father, David, was in his element. He was wearing his Navy retired baseball cap, sitting ramrod straight, his hands gripping the steering wheel at 10 and 2. This was not the angry father from the restaurant. This was Senior Chief Hayes back on base, and he felt powerful. He was visibly vibrating with pride, looking at the uniforms, the flags, the official buildings. He was home. "Look at this, Marcus," he said, nudging my brother. "It never gets old. The discipline, the tradition. This is the real deal." Finally, it was our turn. My father pulled the SUV up to the guard booth, stopping with military precision. He rolled down the window, a huge proud grin splitting his face. The guard was a young sailor, an E4, looked about 19. He had a clipboard and looked bored and hot. "Good morning, sailor," my father boomed, his voice at parade ground, volume. The young guard looked startled. My father presented his blue retired military ID card like it was a winning lottery ticket. "Senior Chief Petty Officer David Hayes, retired," he announced. "Me and my family are here for the BUDS graduation. My son," he jerked a thumb proudly at Marcus in the passenger seat, "is in today's class." The guard glanced at the ID, his eyes barely registering the rank. "Yes, sir, Senior Chief. Welcome to Coronado. I will need to see the valid IDs for all other adult passengers in the vehicle, and I need the full name of the graduate to check against the guest list." My father's smile faltered just for a second, annoyed by the procedural questions. He was Senior Chief Hayes. He expected the gates to just open for him. He pointed at the guard. "My son is Ensign Marcus Hayes. He is the guest. We are his family." The guard just nodded, unimpressed. "Yes, sir. I still need to see their IDs." My father, clearly annoyed at the delay, just grunts. "Fine." He nods to the rest of the car. "Give the man your IDs." My mother, Janelle, fumbles in her expensive handbag and pulls out her driver's license, handing it to the guard with a tight, impatient smile. Chloe, in the back seat next to me, does the same, her movement smooth and entitled. The young sailor takes them, his eyes scanning. "All right, I have Janelle Hayes and Chloe." He pauses, reading her wealthy-sounding last name. "Got it. You are both on the list. Welcome." He hands their IDs back and then his eyes fall on me, the last adult in the car. "Ma'am, your ID, please." My heart rate picks up just a little. I knew this was coming. I reach into my purse and pull out my Maryland driver's license. I hand it to him through the open rear window. "Amani Hayes," he reads. He turns back to his clipboard, his finger tracing down the alphabetical list of approved guests for Ensign Marcus Hayes. He traces it down, then he traces it again. He looks up from the clipboard, his expression no longer bored, but slightly uncomfortable. He is a young kid, and he is about to tell a retired senior chief something he does not want to hear. Senior Chief," the guard says, his voice losing its bored monotone. "I am sorry, sir, but I do not see an Amani Hayes on the guest list for Ensign Hayes." The silence in the SUV is absolute. "What did you say?" My father's voice is not a shout. It is a low, dangerous growl. The guard stands his ground. "Sir, her name is not on the approved access list. I have Janelle Hayes and Chloe, but no Amani Hayes. I cannot let her on the base." My father's face turns a deep, blotchy red. I can see the vein in his temple begin to throb. "Are you blind, sailor?" "Check it again." "That is my daughter." My mother, Janelle, twists around in her seat, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. But her anger is not for the guard. It is for me. "Amani," she hisses, her voice like a snake. "What did you do? You see, you always do. This, you always find a way to ruin everything. You probably gave Marcus the wrong spelling of your name. You cannot even do that, right? And I did not do anything, Mom," I say, my voice calm. "Of course," Chloe chimes in from beside me, her voice sickeningly sweet. She probably knew she was not on the list and just came to cause a scene. How embarrassing. "Shut up," my father barks, not at them, but at the situation. The car behind us honks. We are holding up the line. The ultimate sin. My father's humiliation is complete. This is a public failure, and it is all my fault. The car behind us lays on its horn, a long, impatient blast. My father, David, grips the steering wheel so hard his knuckles are white. He is a retired senior chief being held up at a gate. This is the ultimate public humiliation. Damn it, Amani, he roars, turning in his seat. Look what you did. You are embarrassing this family. My mother, Janelle, is twisting in her seat, her face pale with fury. Get out of the car, Amani. Just get out. You can take an Uber back to the hotel. You are not ruining this for Marcus. Chloe beside me is already pulling out her phone, probably to text Marcus about the scene I am causing. I knew this was a mistake, she mutters. The young guard at the booth looks terrified, caught between a furious senior chief and his duty. Sir, it is okay, I say. My voice is calm and it cuts through their panic. I lean forward. Dad, it is fine. I can get myself in. My father scoffs. How? By crying? By begging? I ignore him. I reach into my purse and pull out a small separate card holder. Not the one with my civilian driver's license. This one is simple, black leather. From it, I retrieve a single card. It is a blue-green government common access card, my CAC. I hand it out the window to the young E4. Ma'am, a driver's license is... He starts to say, annoyed, but he stops. He takes the card. He looks at it. His eyes go wide. I see them dart from the photo to the rank insignia. He sees the 05 and the words U.S. Air Force. The change is instantaneous. It is a physical transformation. The guard's bored, slightly slumped posture vanishes. His back becomes a steel rod. He stands bolt upright, his chin tucked. He looks like a statue. He fumbles with the scanner, his hands suddenly clumsy. He scans the card. The light flashes green with an audible beep. He does not hand the card back. He snaps his right hand up to his brow in a salute so sharp, so precise it could have cut glass. He holds it rigid. My apologies, ma'am, he says, his voice now formal and loud. I did not realize. Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. Please proceed. The reserved parking for 05 and above is just to the left by the Admiral section. Complete, stunned, absolute silence fills the SUV. My mother's mouth is open. Chloe's phone is frozen in her hand. My father, David, just stares. His face has gone from red to a pale, sickly white. He just saluted you, he stammers. Then his brain finally processes the rest. He called you Lieutenant Colonel. I take my ID card back from the guard. Thank you, sailor, I say calmly. Have a good day. I turn to my father, who is still frozen. I told you I worked for the government, Dad. Please drive. We are holding up the line. The drive from the gate was silent, but it was a loud silence. My father, David, was gripping the steering wheel, his face a mask of stone. He was confused, and he hated being confused. The words, Lieutenant Colonel, were hanging in the air of the rented SUV, unspoken, like a grenade with the pin pulled. He did not ask me about it, not one question. He just parked the car in the general parking lot, as far away from the VIP section as he could get. He refused to acknowledge the sailor's directions. He would rather walk half a mile in the heat than accept that I had a right to be in a reserved spot that he did not. We got out. The heat was oppressive, a dry, baking heat that reflected off the asphalt. The air was filled with the sound of a military brass band warming up in the distance, a low murmur of thousands of proud, excited voices, and the sharp rhythmic clicking of heels on pavement. My father, now back in his element, led the charge. He was Senior Chief Hayes on his turf, and the gate incident was something to be buried. He strode toward the front sections, his chest puffed out, his retired cap set at a perfect angle. He spotted the front rows, a prime section roped off with a navy blue velvet rope. A small, polished brass sign hung on it. It read, Reserved Immediate Family of Graduates. I felt a cold twist in my stomach. Immediate family. After last night, after Marcus specifically told me to stand at the back, that sign felt like a fresh wound. The young sailor guarding the section unclipped the rope immediately, recognizing my father's look and Marcus's name on the program. Right this way, Senior Chief. My father nodded, satisfied. He led his family. They moved as a single unified block, David, Janelle, and Chloe. They filed into the 4 empty seats in the very front row. My father, David, took the aisle seat. My mother, Janelle, sat next to him. Chloe, the prized daughter-in-law, sat next to her. They were a wall of disapproval, their backs rigid. They left one empty seat at the end of the row next to my mother. I followed them. My feet felt heavy, like I was walking through wet cement. I was his sister. By blood, I was immediate family whether they liked it or not. I stepped up to the row, my eyes fixed on that one empty chair. I just wanted this day to be over. I was tired of fighting. I took a breath, my purse clutched in my hand, and I moved to sit down. As I moved toward the empty chair, my mother Janelle saw me coming. I was just inches away, about to sit down, about to finally rest my legs from the long walk. But before I could even bend my knees, she performed the action with a cold, deliberate smoothness. She did not look at me. She looked at her large, expensive leather handbag, the one my father had bought her as an anniversary gift. She picked it up from the floor at her feet, and she placed it firmly, squarely onto the center of the empty seat. The message was clear. The seat was taken. She then looked up at me, her face arranged into a mask of polite public-facing concern. Her voice was a syrupy whisper, just loud enough for the people in the row behind us to hear, but quiet enough to sound like an intimate, motherly apology. "Oh, Amani, sweetie," she said, her eyes glittering like ice. "I am so sorry, but this row is just for the immediate family. There are only 4 seats." She gestured with a manicured hand, ticking them off. "You know, Dad, me, and of course Chloe, his fiancée. I just do not have the space for anyone extra." The words hit me harder than my father's rage. I was not just a failure. I was extra. I was an add-on, a stranger. "You understand, don't you?" She continued, her voice now back to its sweet, reasonable tone. "Why do not you go find a spot at the back? You can probably see just fine from there. We would just hate for there to be any confusion when the officers' families look over. We need to look like a unit. It is all about presentation." I looked at my father. He was staring straight ahead, pretending not to hear. I looked at Chloe. She was studying her fingernails, a tiny, satisfied smirk on her lips. They had discussed this. This was the plan. Last night, Marcus had told me to stand at the back. It was not a drunken request. It was an order that my mother was now enforcing with a smile, a whisper, and a $5,000 handbag. She had publicly and finally declared that I was not immediate family. I was not one of them. I was extra. I stood there, frozen, looking at the handbag on the chair. That expensive piece of leather was now my replacement. It had more right to be in the front row than I did. My mother's words, "Go find a spot at the back," echoed in my ears. But they were not just her words, they were his. My mind flashed back to last night, to the restaurant, to my brother's pained, insincere expression. Marcus, the golden child, the hero of the day. "Hey, Amani," he had said, his voice laced with that fake, sad concern. "Please, for me, stand at the back, way at the back. I do not want my commanders or teammates to see you. I do not want to confuse anyone." I did not realize it was a coordinated family plan, a strategy. They had discussed this. They had all agreed. I was not just the dropout. I was the shame. The relative to be hidden away like a dirty secret, while they presented their perfect, polished image to the Navy commanders and the other proud families. "Know your place." My father had ordered me last night, and this apparently was my place. Extra, confusing, at the back. I did not say another word. There was nothing left to say. Arguing would only confirm their narrative that I was difficult and jealous. I would not give them the satisfaction. My mother was still looking at me, her smile tight, waiting for the tears or the anger. I gave her nothing. I simply nodded once, a short, sharp gesture. I turned my back on the front row. I turned my back on my father's rigid shoulders, my mother's triumphant smile, and Chloe's smug sideways glance. I did not look at the empty chair they had denied me. I began to walk. I walked past the second row filled with other families. I walked past the 10th row. I kept walking past the faces of proud parents and happy siblings, all of them smiling, all of them together. I felt their eyes on me, a lone woman in a charcoal suit, walking away from the reserved section. They probably thought I was lost, or perhaps part of the event staff. I did not stop until my feet hit the hot open pavement at the very edge of the seating area. There were no more chairs here, just a few other latecomers, and service members milling about. This was the back. This was way at the back, just as Marcus had requested. I found a spot near a concrete pillar far from everyone, the brass band music sounding thin and distant. The sun was high now, beating down on my head with no shade. I stood there alone, clutching my purse, completely, utterly, and finally isolated from the family I had flown across the country to see. I was exactly where they wanted me to be, hidden, invisible, a failure, standing in the shadows of my brother's great day. From my lonely position at the very back, the ceremony began. A voice amplified by speakers boomed across the field. "Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the graduates of Bud S Class 295. The brass band, which had been playing softly, suddenly erupted into a powerful driving march. The sound was immense. It vibrated in my chest, a wave of pure, disciplined energy, and then they appeared. From the side of the field, the graduates marched in, emerging from a cloud of theatrical blue and gold smoke. They were not the rowdy, arrogant young men from the night before. They were a single, unified entity moving in perfect, frightening unison. They wore their crisp, white dress uniforms. They looked impossibly sharp against the bright green of the parade field. Even from this distance, I could see the change in them. The grueling 6-month ordeal of Bud S had burned away all their boyishness. It had melted them down and reforged them into something hard, something dangerous. They marched with a terrifying precision, their faces set like stone, their eyes locked forward. They were no longer just men, they were seals. The crowd around me, thousands of people, was silent, then erupted into a roar of applause and cheers. I could hear people shouting names, mothers weeping with pride, fathers yelling hoarsely. I scanned the rows of identical white uniforms, my eyes searching for my brother. And then I found him, Marcus. He was marching in the front rank, a place of honor. His posture was perfect. His face was a mask of cold professional pride. He looked exactly like our father. He looked like he belonged. He looked like the hero he had always been told he was. A part of me, small and buried, felt a pang of pride for him. He had endured hell to get here. He had achieved his dream. But as I watched him standing tall in his uniform, the hero of the day, I also remembered his words from last night. "Stand at the back. Do not make this weird." He looked like a hero, but I knew the small, cruel man inside the uniform. The ceremony continued, full of pomp and circumstance, a testament to the power and tradition of the Navy. It was exactly the kind of event my father lived for. And I was exactly where they had put me, invisible. The ceremony was long. Speeches were made. Awards were given. I stood in the back, my feet aching, the sun burning a hole in my shoulder. I watched as my brother Marcus stood at perfect attention, the image of a flawless naval officer. In the front row, I could see the back of my father's head, rigid and proud. Then the energy on the field shifted. The music swelled. The master of ceremonies, a Navy captain with a chest full of ribbons, returned to the podium. His voice was different now. It was not just formal. It was reverent. And now, he boomed, his voice echoing across the massive parade ground. "It is my distinct honor to introduce our keynote speaker, a man who needs no introduction, but whose service demands our respect. He is a warrior. He is a leader. He is a graduate of the United States Naval Academy and has served this nation with unparalleled distinction for over 30 years. From my place in the back, I saw my father, David, sit up even straighter, if that were possible. He knew who the MC was talking about. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The captain continued, his voice rising. He is a decorated combat veteran, a recipient of the Silver Star, the Defense, Superior Service Medal, and the Bronze Star with V device. He has led men in the most dangerous and unforgiving environments on Earth. He is quite simply a living legend. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Commander of Naval Special Warfare Command, Rear Admiral Thorne." The entire field erupted in applause. The graduates, the families, the officers on stage. They all stood there clapping a thunderous roar. A man emerged from the side of the stage. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and African-American. He wore his own immaculate dress, white uniform, the sleeves adorned with the thick gold band of an admiral. He moved with a quiet, coiled energy, a man who was completely comfortable with power. He simply walked to the podium, exuding an aura of absolute, unquestionable authority. And in the front row, my family lost their minds. I watched my father, David. He shot to his feet so fast he almost knocked his own chair over. He was not just clapping, he was pounding his hands together. His face, which had been so hard and angry with me, was now lit up like a child on Christmas morning. It was a look of pure, unadulterated awe. It was hero worship. "Marcus," he hissed, his voice a hoarse, shaky whisper that I could practically read from 50 yards away. He was gripping my brother's arm. "Marcus, that's him. My God, look at him. That's Admiral Thorne. That's the man I was telling you about, a living legend." My brother Marcus tried to remain at attention, but I could see him nodding, a tight, proud smile on his face. This was the peak of his world. My mother Janelle was also on her feet, but for a very different reason. Her applause was polite, but her eyes were frantic. She was fumbling in her expensive handbag. She finally yanked out her smartphone. Her face was a mask of pure social anxiety. This was not a man to be respected. This was a trophy to be captured. "David, fix your tie," she hissed at my father. "Chloe, get ready. I need a picture. The women at the club will die. A rear admiral. And he is," she lowered her voice. "He's one of us. Oh, this is perfect." Chloe beside her was just as bad. She had her own phone out already, snapping photos not of the admiral, but of herself, pouting her lips in a selfie with the admiral's blurry, flag-draped stage in the background. "This is so good," I heard her murmur. "My father's firm is going to love this." My father ignored them both. His entire being was focused on that man at the podium. Admiral Thorne had just raised his hand, a simple gesture, and the thunderous applause immediately fell silent. The power he commanded was absolute. "Marcus, son, are you watching?" My father whispered, trembling with excitement. "That's command. That's real power. I'm telling you, after this, I am going to shake that man's hand. He needs to meet you. He needs to see the next generation of the Hayes family. He needs to see the future of the Navy." My father was practically levitating with pride and ambition. He had already written the script in his head. His son, the new SEAL, being blessed by the Admiral, the living legend. It was the perfect story, the perfect presentation, and he would not let anyone, especially not me, get in the way of it. Admiral Thorne. My father said his name like he was a god, a living legend, a warrior's warrior. He was trembling with excitement at the idea of shaking this man's hand. My mother and Chloe were scrambling to capture a photo, a social trophy to prove they were in the presence of greatness. They saw him as a celebrity, a symbol of power and tradition, the absolute pinnacle of the military world they so desperately wanted to be a part of. They had no idea. I stood at the back, hidden in the shadows, and a strange, cold calm washed over me. I knew Admiral Thorne, not personally. We did not play golf. We did not exchange Christmas cards. My knowledge of him was not based on fawning articles or Navy lore. I knew him from work. I knew him from sterile, windowless rooms deep inside the Pentagon rooms that officially do not exist. I knew him from secure video teleconferences at 3:00 inches the morning, his face pixelated on a screen, his voice grim and low as we discussed active threats. I knew him from the kind of meetings where everyone has to leave their phones, their watches, and any digital device in a locked box outside the door. He was Admiral Thorne, commander of Naval Special Warfare Command, the head of all SEALs, and I was Lieutenant Colonel Amani Hayes, United States Air Force, the Dropout, the IT support specialist. He did not know me as Amani, the failed daughter. He knew me as Dr. Hayes, the senior analyst from AF Cyber Air Force Cyber Command. He knew me as Colonel, his counterpart from a sister service, the officer who led the team that provided the digital intelligence for his analog warriors. He knew me as the person who had, on more than one occasion, given him the go or no-go, intel that decided whether his men just like my brother, would walk into a trap or walk out alive. My father was desperate for this man to see the Hayes family legacy. He wanted him to meet Marcus, the future of the Navy. My father had no idea that Admiral Thorne already knew a Hayes. He just knew a different one. He knew the one they had all dismissed, the one they had banished to the back of the crowd, the one he respected. A very, very dark smile touched my lips. I stood there under the hot sun, completely invisible to my family, and I waited. The Admiral was at the podium. My father was watching him, but I was watching my father. This was going to be very, very interesting. Admiral Thorne's speech was not long, but it was powerful. He did not shout. He did not need to. He spoke in a clear, resonant voice that carried across the entire field. He did not talk about glory or victory or fame. He talked about something different. He talked about sacrifice. He talked about the long, dark nights. He talked about the silent warrior, the professional who does the work, not for the applause, not for the recognition, but because the work must be done. From the back, I listened, and I felt a chill. He was talking about my world, the classified world of shadows and data that I lived in. But in the front row, my family heard something completely different. My father, David, was mesmerized. He was nodding along to every word. He saw his own reflection in the Admiral's speech. He saw his son Marcus. He saw the warrior, the hero. He saw his legacy. Finally, the Admiral reached his closing line. "You are now the tip of the spear," he said, his voice dropping. "The shield of the Republic. You are the men our enemies fear. You are United States Navy SEALs. Congratulations." The applause was a physical explosion. It was a wave of sound, a roar of pure cathartic pride that washed over the field. Admiral Thorne stepped back from the podium. And now the moment we have all been waiting for, the pinning of the trident. A wave of movement. The senior officers on the stage, including Admiral Thorne, stood and descended the steps. They moved down the line of standing graduates. Each SEAL had his golden trident pinned, the coveted badge of their brotherhood, ready to be pinned on their chest by a mentor or a leader. My father in the front row was vibrating. He was so close. The Admiral was moving down the line, shaking hands, pinning the badge, offering a firm word of congratulations. He was getting closer and closer. And then he was there. He stopped directly in front of my brother. He was directly in front of my family's row. My father looked like he was going to faint. Admiral Thorne took the golden trident. He looked Marcus square in the eyes. He pressed the pin firmly into the white uniform right over my brother's heart. He then snapped his hand up in a salute. Marcus saluted back. The Admiral shook his hand firmly. "Congratulations, Ensign," he said, his voice a low, clear rumble. That was just for Marcus. And then he was done. He was turning, ready to move to the next graduate in the long waiting line. This was the moment my father David had been waiting for, and he saw it slipping away. The legend was right there, a few feet away, and he was about to leave. My father's desperation, his lifetime of needing validation, of needing his legacy to be seen by the men he worshipped. All of it boiled over. He could not stop himself. In a breathtaking breach of military protocol, a move that made me want to physically sink into the pavement, my father stood up. He did not just stand. He surged forward from his front row seat, stepping into the small, sacred space between the audience and the graduates. He wedged himself directly into the Admiral's path, blocking him. "Admiral Thorne," my father's voice boomed across the silent field. It was too loud. It cracked with a desperate, star-struck emotion. The Admiral stopped mid-stride. He turned. His face, which had been warm for Marcus, became a perfect, polite, unreadable mask. He was a professional, but he had been interrupted during a formal ceremony by a civilian. "Sir," my father gushed, his hand shooting out for a handshake. "Senior Chief David Hayes, United States Navy retired. It is an honor, Admiral. A true, deep honor." I wanted to close my eyes. I could feel the embarrassment radiating in waves. My father, a retired senior chief, was acting like a frantic groupie fawning over a rock star. "This is my son, Admiral," David continued, not waiting for a reply. He grabbed Marcus's shoulder, practically yanking him forward. "Ensign Marcus Hayes, the one you just pinned. He is my boy, my legacy." Marcus looked caught between deep embarrassment at his father's behavior and an overwhelming smug pride at being the center of attention. Admiral Thorne, to his immense credit, did not flinch. He was used to this. He took my father's outstretched hand and shook it once, firmly. "Congratulations on your son, Senior Chief," the Admiral said, his voice perfectly neutral, polite, and completely devoid of the excitement my father was showing. "You have every right to be proud." "Thank you, sir. Thank you." My father was beaming, his face shining with sweat and victory. "He is Hayes' family legacy, sir. Navy through and through." The Admiral just nodded, gave a tight professional smile, and then with the practiced skill of a politician, he deftly sidestepped my father and moved on to the next graduate in line. My father, completely oblivious to the social train wreck he had just caused, turned back to his seat. He was glowing, triumphant. He had done it. He had shaken the legend's hand. He had presented his legacy. Janelle and Chloe were looking at him like he had just won the lottery. He sat down. Mission accomplished. A broad grin on his face, not realizing for 1 second that his legacy had barely even registered on the Admiral's radar. "Senior Chief," the Admiral said, with one last tight professional nod. And with that, my father was dismissed. My father David was glowing, He was triumphant, his face shining with sweat and victory. He had shaken the legend's hand. He had presented his legacy. He stepped back, his chest puffed out, and as he began to sit down, he shot a quick, victorious glance back at my mother. His mission was accomplished. The Admiral turned, ready to move on to the next graduate in the long waiting line, but he paused. It was a small, almost imperceptible thing. Before addressing the next SEAL, he did something that all senior officers do. It is an instinct, a habit born from decades of command, of assessing a room, of maintaining absolute situational awareness. He raised his chin slightly and performed a slow, sweeping scan of the entire crowd. His eyes, sharp and assessing, moved over the front rows, past my beaming father, past my mother. His gaze swept over the middle sections, and then his eyes reached the back, the far back, where the pavement began, where the unroped, unimportant general standing area was, where I was, and his eyes stopped. They just stopped. His head, which had been in a smooth, sweeping motion, froze. His body was still angled toward the next SEAL, but his entire focus was now locked onto the back of the crowd. He was staring. He was staring directly at me. I felt my blood turn to ice. My heart did a painful single slam against my ribs. I was standing alone by a concrete pillar in my cheap suit, exactly where my family had banished me. And the most powerful man on the base, the man my father worshipped as a god, was now ignoring everyone to stare unblinking right at me. The Admiral's brow furrowed. He was confused. The sun was in his eyes and I was 50 yards away. He squinted his head, tilting slightly. I could see the question on his face. Is that? No, it cannot be. What is she doing back there? He took a half step back, his focus intensifying, and then the confusion on his face cleared. It was replaced by a flash of pure, unadulterated recognition. He knew me, and everyone saw it. The ceremony, which had been moving with military precision, had just come to a complete halt. The music died away into a few confused trailing trumpet notes. The thousands of people in the crowd who had been focused on the stage now turned their heads, following the Admiral's path. In the front row, my father's triumphant smile wavered, then died. He looked confused. Why had the Admiral stopped? He followed the Admiral's gaze. My mother followed it. Chloe followed it. They were searching for a threat or maybe another more important VIP. They had no idea. The distance between us melted away. The Admiral's eyes locked with mine. He knew it was me, and I knew he knew. The Admiral's formal professional mask did not just crack. It vanished. The confusion melted away and was replaced by a flash of genuine, warm, unmistakable recognition. His face lit up. A broad, authentic smile spread across his features, and then he did the unthinkable. He broke protocol. In the middle of the most sacred ceremony in naval special warfare, the Admiral turned. He turned away from the stage, away from the line of SEALs, and he began to walk. He stepped off the immaculate parade ground and onto the pavement. He was walking with a purpose, his eyes fixed on that single point at the very back of the crowd. He was walking toward me. The entire ceremony shuddered to a halt. He walked past the line of confused SEALs. He walked right past the front row. He was so close my father could have reached out and touched his uniform. I watched as the Admiral's boots clicked on the pavement, passing my father, passing my mother, passing Chloe. My father, David, was frozen in his seat, his mouth half open. His triumphant grin was gone, replaced by a look of utter, profound bewilderment. His hero, the legend, was ignoring him, ignoring his son, and walking away. Where? Is he going? My mother Janelle hissed, her voice a sharp, panicked whisper. What is he doing, David? What's happening? He must see another admiral, my father stammered. Or a politician. But the Admiral was not looking for anyone else. He did not slow down. He was a man on a mission. He was closing the distance, his eyes locked on me. The dropout, the failure, the family shame, who had been banished to the back, and he was still smiling. The crowd parted for him as he walked. He came to a stop right in front of me. He stopped 3 feet in front of me. The silence that followed was a vacuum. Every eye on that field was now locked on 2 people. The Admiral standing in the aisle and me, the outcast, standing by a concrete pillar. In the front row, I could see my father, David, slowly getting to his feet. This was not part of his plan. His hero was off script, and somehow his failure of a daughter was the cause. Amani, his voice was a roar. Amani, what in the hell do you think you are doing? He bellowed. Get back. You are interrupting the ceremony. You are disgracing your brother." But Admiral Thorne did not even flinch. He did not turn. He did not acknowledge my father's existence. He kept his eyes locked on me, and he smiled. It was a broad, warm, genuine smile of pure, delighted surprise. And then he did it. In front of my father, my mother, my brother, and the entire Naval Special Warfare community, Rear Admiral Thorne, a 2-star flag officer, snapped to attention. His hand, crisp and white, flew up to his brow in a perfect formal salute. My body reacted before my brain did. 12 years of training took over. My own hand, a mirror image snapped up. I was saluting him back. "Lieutenant Colonel Hayes." The Admiral's voice boomed clear and resonant, carrying across the now dead silent field. "I was not expecting to see you here." The sound wave of those 2 words, "Lieutenant Colonel," hit the front row like a physical explosion. I watched my father's face. The purple rage drained away, leaving a pale, sickly, slack-jawed shock. His mouth opened. "Lieutenant Colonel?" he stammered, his voice a dry, rasping whisper. "Lieutenant Colonel?" He knew that rank. Oh, he knew it. A lieutenant colonel was an 05, a field-grade officer, a commander. It was a rank so far above his own that it was not even in the same reality. And that word had just been attached to me. His daughter, the dropout, the failure, the IT support specialist. My mother Janelle did not know the rank. She did not need to. She just saw the action. She saw a 2-star admiral, a living legend. The man she was desperate to get a photo of, salute first. She saw him smile. She saw the power, the respect, the difference. And she saw it all directed at the daughter she had just banished from the front row. Her entire world built on presentation and social status was folding in on itself. This did not compute. Chloe beside her was just lost. "Lieutenant." "What?" she whispered. "What is that? Is that good?" And Marcus, my brother, the brand new ensign, an 01. He was frozen in the line of graduates. He was staring at me over the admiral's shoulder. His face was white as his uniform. He was an officer. He knew exactly what an 05 was, and he had just told that 05 to stand at the back so she would not embarrass him. The blood drained from his face as he realized the catastrophic career-level mistake he had just made. The crowd around me was buzzing. The whispers started instantly. Did he say Lieutenant Colonel? An 05 inches the Air Force? What is she doing standing in the back? That's his sister? The Admiral was still holding his salute, that warm smile on his face. I finally found my voice. I took a breath, holding my own salute. My arm rigid, my voice clear and steady, cutting through the absolute chaos my family was experiencing. "Admiral Thorne," I said, my voice as professional and calm as if we were in the Pentagon. "It is good to see you, sir. I am here for my brother. He is graduating today." Admiral Thorne drops his salute, his expression of surprise shifting to one of genuine warm respect. "Your brother?" he repeats, his voice still carrying across the silent field. He glances over his shoulder at Marcus, who is still frozen in the line of graduates, his face pale and sick. "Ensign Hayes? Well, I will be. Small world." He then turns. He turns his entire body away from me and away from the graduates, and he faces the front row. He faces my family. His gaze lands on my father David, who is still standing. My father looks like a statue of a confused man. "You must be Senior Chief Hayes," Admiral Thorne says. His voice is different now. The warmth is gone. It is professional, polite, but with an edge as hard as steel. My father David just stammers. I am, sir." "Yes, Admiral, I am." "You are this woman's father?" The Admiral asks, gesturing to me. "Yes, sir, she is. She is my daughter, Admiral." "Admiral." Thorne nods slowly, his eyes never leaving my father's face. "Senior Chief," he says, his voice quiet, but carrying the weight of his office. "You must be an extraordinarily proud man." My father blinks. This is what he wanted to hear. He starts to puff up, a flicker of his old arrogance returning. "Yes, sir. I am. My son, the SEAL." "No." Admiral Thorne cuts him off. The word is not loud, but it is so sharp, so final that it hangs in the air. "Not just your son. I am talking about your daughter." My father's brief flicker of pride vanishes. He just looks confused again. The Admiral takes a step closer to the front row, his voice dropping slightly, but it is an intense, focused sound. "Senior Chief, do you have any idea what this woman does? Do you have any idea who she is?" My father just shakes his head dumbly. The Admiral looks at me, then back at my father. Let me tell you something, Senior Chief. Your son, he nods at Marcus, is a warrior. He is about to go to the darkest corners of the world to hunt our enemies. But your daughter, he points a single steady finger at me, is the reason men like him get to come home alive. My mother Janelle makes a small gasping sound. This Lieutenant Colonel, the Admiral continues, his voice resonating with a sudden, fierce intensity, is one of the most brilliant strategic minds I have ever had the privilege to work with. Last week, your son was running drills on this beach. Last week, your daughter was commanding a joint task force in a cyber warfare operation. She was hunting the people who hunt us. He gestures back at the SEALs. You see these men? Her work protects them. Let me be very clear. A SEAL outpost in East Africa was about to be overrun by a coordinated attack. They were walking into a trap and we were blind. But your daughter and her team found the electronic signature. They broke the code. They found the chatter. They ran Project Chimera for 72 hours straight with no sleep. And they got us the data. Your daughter, this Lieutenant Colonel, saved that entire SEAL team from being wiped off the map. Not with a rifle, but with her brain. Admiral Thorne's words about Project Chimera settled over my family a heavy, suffocating blanket of truth. He had just told my father that I, the dropout, was the one protecting his legacy. My father, David, was still reeling from that, his mind clearly struggling to reconcile Amani with saving SEALs. He looked pale and his hands were shaking. But the Admiral was not finished. He was not even close. Admiral Thorne looked at me, and his formal professional demeanor softened again into that look of genuine respect. He smiled. The Secretary of Defense himself sends his personal commendation, you know, he said, his voice now almost conversational, as if he and I were the only two people on the field. He was not happy about the intelligence gap. He was very, very happy about how your team closed it. My father's head snapped up. The Secretary of Defense, he whispered, his voice cracking. Admiral Thorne heard him. He turned his head slowly, looking at my father with a hard assessing gaze. Yes, Senior Chief. The Secretary of Defense, the man who runs the entire Department of Defense. He is personally aware of your daughter's work, as are we all. He is not the only one. The Admiral turned back to me, his smile becoming a little wider. I saw the promotion list that came across my desk. The Joint Service Commendation from Chimera must have pushed it over the top. I know you just got your 05 not long ago, which was already faster than almost anyone I have ever seen, but I see your file for 06 was just approved. That is astounding, Doctor. Hayes. He took a small, deliberate step toward me. His voice was warm, full of professional admiration. So let me be the first to say it publicly. Congratulations on the promotion. Have they sent you the Silver Eagle yet, Colonel Hayes? Colonel. That was the word. The final killing blow. If Lieutenant Colonel was a bomb, Colonel was the apocalypse. My father, David, an E8 Senior Chief, knew exactly what a colonel was. He knew that an 06, a full bird colonel, was a rank of immense, staggering power. It was a rank that commanded bases. It was a rank that reported to generals. It was a rank that he, an E8, would spend his entire 30-year career saluting and addressing as Sir. It was a rank his failure daughter at 34 years old had just achieved. It was impossible. It was a statistical anomaly. It was a shattering of his entire universe. The blood did not just drain from his face. His soul left his body. His jaw, which had been merely slack, unhinged and dropped. I could see his entire identity, his entire belief system, his 12 years of righteous anger. All of it just crumbled to dust and blew away in the hot California breeze. Colonel, my mother whispered, finally understanding. Colonel Hayes. Admiral Thorne, his duty done, simply nodded to me one last time. Pleasure to see you, Colonel, he said. He did not shake my father's hand. He did not look at my brother. He simply turned his back straight and walked with crisp, measured steps back to the stage, leaving my family alone in the smoking crater of their own arrogance. The word colonel hung in the hot dead air. It was a single word, but it was an execution. I watched my father, his world, the one he had built for 58 years on the bedrock of Navy tradition, rank, and his own rigid, unbending pride, was not just cracking. It was annihilated. His jaw, which had been merely slack, unhinged, it dropped open, a silent, gaping O of absolute profound devastation. He physically staggered. He was staring at me, but he was not seeing me, his daughter. He was seeing an impossibility, a ghost, an 06, a full bird colonel. He was the man who said, "Yes, sir." and he had just been informed that his failure, his dropout daughter, was a person he would be required to salute. I tore my eyes away from him and looked at my brother Marcus, the new ensign, the brand new O1. His face was no longer pale. It was a ghastly greenish white. He was staring at me, his eyes wide with a new, dawning professional terror. He was not just embarrassed, he was afraid. He had just told a full colonel, his superior officer, to stand at the back so she would not embarrass him. He knew in that instant that he had just committed a career-ending sin. My mother Janelle was just lost. "Colonel," she whispered, the word sounding foreign and strange on her lips. She did not understand the rank like my father did, but she understood the power. She understood the salute. She understood that she had just banished the most important, highest status person on the field from her front row seat. Admiral Thorne, seeing that his presence was no longer required, did not linger. He turned back to me, his professional smile returning. In front of everyone, he snapped to attention one last time. "A real pleasure to see. You, Colonel Hayes," he said, his voice warm. I saluted him back, my own arm steady. "Thank you, Admiral. Good to see you too." And with that, he turned on his heel, his back straight, and walked with crisp, measured steps back to the stage, leaving me standing in the smoking, silent wreckage of my family. He left me there with my father, who was still holding on to that chair. His life's work, his legacy, his entire sense of self turned to ash at his feet. The ceremony finally mercifully ended. Tables were set up with lemonade and cookies, but for my family, it was a funeral. My family, David, Janelle, and Chloe, huddled near the edge of the tent. My father, David, looked like a ghost. My mother was pale, her eyes darting around, not in search of recognition but in fear of it. And Marcus, my brother, the hero of the day, he was just standing there alone, his glory snuffed out before it had even begun. I, on the other hand, was not allowed to be alone. I had not moved 5 feet into depleted. The tent before the power dynamic of the entire military community realigned itself right in front of my family's eyes. The first to approach was a Navy captain, an 06, his own chest covered in ribbons. He walked right past my father's broken group and stopped in front of me. He did not smile. He simply offered his hand. "Colonel Hayes," he said, his voice deep and respectful. "Captain Miller, an absolute honor to have you here. I have read your team's briefs on the Chimera project. Astounding work." I shook his hand. "Thank you, Captain." "Just doing my job." "No, ma'am," he said, his eyes serious. That was above and beyond. His wife standing next to him beamed. "It is so wonderful to meet you, Colonel. We must have you over for dinner the next time you are in Coronado." And then it was a flood. Suddenly I was surrounded. "Colonel Hayes, a privilege." "Colonel, my husband works in Nevantal. He is a huge admirer of your work." "Colonel, your speech. Well, the Admiral's speech about you was the highlight of the day." I was polite. I shook hands. I was trapped in a circle of respect, a circle of high-ranking officers and their influential wives, all of them looking at me not as a dropout, but as a colleague, a leader, a person of immense power, and over their shoulders I could see my family watching, completely invisible to the new center of the universe. The crowd of officers and their wives finally began to disperse, leaving me in a small, quiet bubble of my own. And then they approached my family. They moved as one broken unit crossing the open space toward me. It was not a walk. It was a funeral procession. My father David was in the lead, but he was not the proud senior chief from this morning. He was a stooped, gray old man, his hands trembling. They stopped a few feet away from me. The silence was deafening. My father looked at the ground. He looked at my face, and his eyes were filled with a terrible, agonizing confusion. His entire world was gone. "Amani," he said. His voice was not a roar. It was a dry, cracked whisper. "Amani, why?" He swallowed, his throat working. "Why? Why didn't you say anything all these years? A lieutenant colonel." "A colonel? Why did you let us? Why did you let me?" I looked at him. Not with anger, not with pity. I just looked at him, and I felt nothing but a cold, hard calm. The power dynamic had shifted not just in the last 5 minutes, but over the last 12 years. He just did not know it until now. "I tried," I said, my voice clear and even, cutting through the warm reception air. "I tried 12 years ago. I was 22. I tried to tell you I was recruited. I tried to tell you it was a different program. And do you remember what you said? He just stared at me, his eyes wide, remembering. You called me a liar, I said, my voice flat, holding his gaze. You called me a disgrace. You told me I was making up pathetic stories to cover for being a weakling. You screamed at me in my own room to shut up, so I did. I let the words hang in the air. I looked at the broken, trembling, 8 inches front of me. I was just following your last order, Senior Chief. The rank hit him like a physical slap. He flinched, his whole body recoiling. Using his title was not a sign of respect. It was a confirmation of the vast, unbridgeable chasm that was now between us. It was me telling him he was no longer my father. He was just a retired enlisted man who had no right to question a colonel. He had no answer, but my mother, Janelle, suddenly pushed past him. Her eyes were wide, but not with shame. They were gleaming with a new, frantic, desperate calculation. She did not care about the lies. She did not care about the humiliation. She only understood one thing. But a colonel, she stammered, grabbing my arm. Amani, a colonel. Does that mean are you rich? How much money do you make? Her question hangs in the air, pathetic and revealing. She had just seen a 2-star admiral salute me, and her only thought was about my bank account. Before I can answer, someone else steps forward, pushing past my stunned parents. It is Marcus, my brother, the hero of the day. But he does not look like a hero. His face, which was white with terror, is now a deep, furious red. His graduation certificate is crumpled in his fist. His eyes are burning not with fear but with pure, childish rage. He is humiliated, and he has decided it is my fault. You, he seethes, his voice low and shaking. You did this. You did this on purpose. Chloe is right behind him, clinging to his arm, her face a mask of vindictive anger. He is right. You did. You knew. You knew who you were this whole time. You came here to ruin my day, Marcus accuses, jabbing a finger at me. My one day, you could not just be happy for me. You had to make it all about you. You couldn't just stand at the back like I asked you to. You let us, Chloe's voice cracks with indignation. You let us talk to you like that. You let us think you were a nobody. You're manipulative. You're a liar. I look at them. My brother, the brand new Navy SEAL, an ensign in the United States Navy, throwing a tantrum like a 5-year-old. No, Marcus, I say, and my voice is so cold, so quiet, it cuts right through his rage. You are wrong. I did not do this to you. I came here for you. I came here for one reason, I continue, my eyes locked on his, to see my brother graduate from Bud. I was for a moment genuinely proud of you. That is the truth. I did everything this family demanded of me to make you feel comfortable. I let Dad yell at me. I let Mom banish me. I stood at the back just like you asked. I made myself invisible to protect your perfect day. I take a step closer to him. My success is not a weapon, Marcus. My life is not a weapon. I have spent 12 years in the shadows, not because I am ashamed, but because my work requires it. It was not my plan to be seen today, but I will never apologize for who I am. I look at his angry, humiliated face. You are not embarrassed because I am a colonel. You are embarrassed because you told a colonel to stand at the back so she would not confuse anyone. You are humiliated because you treated that officer like garbage, and she just happens to be your sister. I will not apologize for my success, and I will never again apologize for this family's behavior. Congratulations on your graduation, Ensign. I pull my arm free from my mother's greedy grip, her question about money hanging in the air, pathetic and revealing. I looked past her at Marcus, who was crumpled in his own humiliated rage, and then at my father, who was just a hollow shell. They were a shattered mirror, each piece reflecting a different kind of ugliness. I have to go, I said. My voice was not angry. It was not triumphant. It was just a statement of fact. My mother started to speak, her eyes still wide with that frantic, desperate calculation. Amani, wait, but the money, the house. I have a flight to catch, I said, cutting her off. A C-12 transport is waiting for me at North Island. It is taking me back to Andrews Air Force Base. I am needed at the Pentagon for a briefing at 0800 tomorrow. This last piece of information landed. A C-12, a military transport, Andrews, the Pentagon. These were not the words of an IT support specialist. These were the words of someone who moved in a world they could not even comprehend. My father flinched as if I had physically slapped him again. My mother's hand, the one that had been grabbing my arm, fell limply to her side. Marcus just deflated. All the childish rage, all the indignation, it all just evaporated. I did not say goodbye. I did not offer comfort. I did not wait for an apology. I had spent 12 long years waiting for them to see me, and now that they finally did, I realized I did not need them to. Their validation was worthless. I simply turned my back on them. I walked with the steady, measured, confident stride of a colonel in the United States Air Force. I was no longer their scapegoat. I was no longer their failure. I was just me, and it was finally enough. I walked out of the reception tent into the bright, hot California sun, and I did not look back. I left them there, a silent, broken tableau of their own making. I left them to stand alone in the wreckage of the world they had built on lies and arrogance. My father spent so long staring at the ocean, he never thought to look up. He just never realized that the true legacy of the Hayes family, the one he had tried to break, the one he had banished to the back of the crowd, was always destined to fly.